Hello, everyone. So a couple of the viewers, contacted me and asked for my opinions on the border crisis that's happening between the state of Texas and the federal government. Obviously, everybody knows that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the federal government because, by the Constitution, the federal government controls the border and immigration. So the state of Texas does not have the authority to start securing a national border. But Governor Abbott is not backing down. So he hasn't allowed access to the federal agencies to get down to his area of the border. And so consequently, this is still, this legal dance is going to continue on for a while. But in the meantime, as a nation, I just want to be very clear in this whole thing. I support legal immigration. This country was built upon legal immigrants. I happen to be an immigrant. My family came to the United States in the early 1970s, 71, legally, and we settled in the United States. I went to school in the U.S. I joined the Marine Corps, served 20 plus years. My son was a Marine. So, I take great pride in the fact that I'm an American. So the issue is not legal immigration. What I'm talking about is the illegal immigration, the illegals that are coming across the border, across a large swath of the border in the southern United States. That's the issue here. And this is a huge problem because, quite frankly, we don't know how many are coming. In my research, I found all sorts of figures. 500,000 illegals are coming over, 2.5 million a year, in some cases over 3 million. Then I started researching, okay, how many illegals do we have in the United States? By some estimates, it's up to 10 million. By some estimates, it's 11, 12 million. I've also read some documents that say upwards of 20 million. So nobody really knows how many illegals we have currently in the United States. So this problem is not only growing, but it's causing a problem within our governments, the state and the federal governments, because they're starting to bump heads over who's got responsibility of the border. So this is a big issue, especially when emotions are heightened during an election cycle. We need to address this issue. And the other reason we need to address the issue is it's the right thing to do. I mean, as a country, if we don't have secure borders, we're not a country anymore. That's the bottom line. We spend, hundreds of billions of dollars helping other countries secure their borders. We've got 800 bases overseas to provide their security, but we're not providing our own security. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine for them to be able to secure their border, and the same in Israel for them to be able to secure their borders. But what about our borders? So what are some of the practical things that we can do? We've talked about the wall, digging a ditch, and all sorts of stuff, right? And these are really optics. The bottom line is we need a policy and we need some strong legislation to back up that policy. And something simple as every border has two sides. Now, if you look at this map here, you look at, Angola and Namibia, okay? There's a border that goes across. So Angola is responsible for their side of the border. Namibia is responsible for their side of the border. South Africa is responsible for their side of the border. Namibia is responsible for their side of the border. The same applies in the United States. Mexico is responsible for their side of the border, and the United States is responsible for our side of the border. Now, I've had the privilege of traveling to over 100 countries on this planet, and every land border has a buffer zone. So before you're approaching the border, there's signs up there, only authorized persons allowed, deadly forces authorized, things of that nature. So that buffer zone keeps everybody away from the border, generally on both sides. Now, on the Mexican side, they need to have a buffer zone. They should not allow, these hordes of people approaching the U.S. border and crossing over. That's Mexico's problem. And we should hold Mexico accountable. So they should have, whatever that buffer zone needs to be, 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, whatever they deem is sufficient, they need to do that. And if they do that, and if people aren't allowed to go in that buffer zone and they control that buffer zone, then obviously it's another defensive belt that people won't approach the U.S. border and cross it illegally. And if somebody does cross that border illegally, Mexico should pay a fine. Similarly, if somebody crosses illegally from the United States into Mexico, the U.S. should pay a fine. That's how it works. And now the airlines, airlines follow a similar system. If you get on an international flight and you don't have the proper documents, you know, passport, visas and stuff, and you land in the United States or any other country, the airline gets heavily penalized for that. That's why the airlines always check for documents. So the same system has to apply. You know, the government, Mexican government needs to be held accountable for people that are approaching the U.S. border. Now, you know, so, and if somebody does come across, you know, they pay a $10,000 fine for every person that crosses over. Now, the question is, well, you know, what if they don't pay it? Well, if they don't pay it, you know what, we stop. They're one of our largest trading partners now, Mexico and Canada are, and we stop their trucks from crossing over into our border, into the United States and having access to our markets. I guarantee you they'll start paying. We stop remittance of all the workers that are in the United States sending money back home to their families in Mexico. I guarantee you, once that money stops, that they'll start paying attention to the border. So that's how you solve the problems. And it's a lot easier and cheaper to be able to secure the border on the Mexican side than trying to do it on the US side. So we got to have these multi-layered, you know, security zones leading all the way up to the border, and then also on our side of the border. But if we don't have proper legislation and proper agreements with Mexico, we'll never get this resolved. And then what happens is, you know, during an election cycle, you got the state and the federal government butting heads. And we certainly don't want that either, because it just makes us a weaker country. So the bottom line is this, and the message is very clear. Politicians, you need to do your job. And you need to have active legislation. You know, and anybody that crosses into the United States illegally and then asks for amnesty, you know, that's a non-starter, because by crossing a border illegally, they've committed a felony. And last time I checked, you couldn't be a felon and get a U.S. visa or get U.S. citizenship. So we're allowing all these people to do something illegal, and then we're rewarding them, saying, hey, yeah, we'll take your asylum, you know, case and for consideration. That shouldn't happen. If you want asylum, you know, you can stay in your home country, or you can, you know, or apply in Mexico. That's the bottom line. My family were asylum seekers. You know, when we left Pakistan, we stayed in Afghanistan, we stayed in Iran, then we had to come to the UK and Spain, and finally, once all the approvals came in, then we flew into the United States. So the same principle should apply. You come to the US legally, you're more than welcome, contribute to our society, and do good. That's what we expect of every American. But if you're going to come here illegally and circumvent the system and you know, become a burden on our society, yeah, we got a problem. We got a huge problem. Because then what happens is, with that open border, we also got drug cartels using it, running drugs across with mules, with a lot of these illegals that come across. They're bringing drugs across. So we need to stop this flow immediately. This is a huge national security issue. It's far bigger than, you know, Taiwan or Gaza or Ukraine. Quite frankly, it's a big issue, and it's a bigger issue than the Houthis in the Red Sea. You know, because this impacts our homeland, and we need to wake up and we need to pay attention to this. Summary: first one is get with Mexico, have them establish a buffer zone or a security zone, and enforce it. The second issue is asylum seekers. You don't get asylum once you illegally cross the border into the United States. You get asylum when you're on the other side of the border. Once your documents and the paperwork and your case is processed, then by all means, we'll tell you to enter the United States as an asylum seeker, and work your way towards a green card and a citizenship. And trust me, I mean, it's a great privilege to be an American. And you know, I came to the United States. My parents came to the United States. I came to the United States. My siblings came to the United States. And then, you know, I went to school in the U.S. I joined the Marine Corps, served 20 plus years as a Marine. My son also served in the Marine Corps, in the infantry. So, you know, I'm committed to all this, and good things happen with immigrants. The United States is built on immigrants. So the issue is not immigrants, the issue is illegals. And I don't even like using the word illegal immigrants. They're just illegals. So that's all I got. Stay rugged, Khan out.